So tonight, last week we talked about exiles. And exiles, like if you're dealing with like internal systems of our souls, the emotional internal systems of our souls, exiles are the parts of our lives, and we all have them, that we would like to find a way to push down, keep down, and move away from any real kind of conversation. You know, being raped would be an exile. Being physically abused would be an exile. Growing up with an addict or an alcoholic would be an exile. Losing someone in an abrupt way would be an exile. Experiencing a wide variety of traumas would all be exiles. And so, for a lot of us, we have learned to kind of do the managing role with managers, which we're going to talk about, to do the managing role of the exile by like keeping the exile kind of over here, not trying to talk about it, not wanting anybody else to talk about it, getting uncomfortable when somebody does talk about it. It's kind of like you go and you decide that you're really unhappy for a variety of reasons. And so that unhappiness lasts 8 to 10 months. And you become a little bit more down the dumps, a little more depressed or whatever. So someone starts saying to you, you ought to think about going to see a therapist. And you go, your first is, like, I tried all that, like I did that. How long did you see the therapist? Well, 3 weeks. It's like, oh, okay. Maybe you should think about like spending some more time. Well, so you decide to brave it up, courage it up, and so you go see Jane the therapist. So she goes, can you kind of walk me through kind of a timeline of your life, the big events? And you go, well, I was a kid. I had a lot of fun in elementary school. I went to high school, got through that, went to college, got a job, got married, got divorced, had some kids. That pretty much does it. She's looking at you like, yeah. She's thinking, you're thinking, you can take a deep breath now. You got all the way through that and said it all out loud. She's thinking, he missed about 10,000 things along the way. In those 10,000 things are our exiles, like stuff we don't want to talk about, stuff that really has a grasp on us that we're really not fully aware of, stuff that's dominating us that we're also not really aware of, stuff in our life that we want to figure out a way to shove down. It's like I talked to somebody 5 or 6 weeks ago, and so they had a house that they had just bought like 8 weeks before. Matter of fact, Carol told me about a second or third family member type deal of hers, her sister-in-law, that, they closed on a house in Florida, in Lakeland. Their house, on the exact same day they closed on that house, burnt to the ground. You're like, anything with that story? There really wasn't, but it's just like, what would that do to you? Like, what would the impact of that be? Stuff like that. Stuff like, for me, and I worked really hard with this exile to shove it down, like having my dad say goodbye to me for school and me get on a bus, and my next call was from the principal at the school, and she wants me to come to the office, which of course made me think through my day, like, what did I do today that could have gotten screwed up? I'm trying to go backwards and think about that. When is the last screwed up thing that I did in this school? So it's kind of like, and it could also what is this principal trying to get me to rat out if it's not me? Like, what's the story? I never thought about anything beyond stuff like that. And so I go to see the principal, and she goes, I just got to tell you some really hard news. And I had a neighbor friend who was there. I thought it was bizarre. So she goes, well, we lost your dad today to a car accident. It kind of just happened about an hour and a half ago. That's like what exiles are made of. Like, you really work hard to try to put that away into a compartment where not many people are going to know about it, not many people are going to see it. You know, it's like both of my daughters did the exact same thing in that they went through probably at least 2 years of college, maybe 3, before they ever told anybody that their mother was an alcoholic and that their mother had died of the disease. They just never talked about it. That's exiles. That's what they're like. Might be more. It could be like maybe you had parents that completely went bankrupt and lost a house. That would be an exile. Maybe you had parents that did something highly illegal, embezzled money. That would be like an exile. There are a lot of things like that. Things that embarrass us, things that overpower us, things that bring shame into our lives. Those all qualify as some pretty high-powered exiles. So we all have 2 really different types of protectors. Protectors keep us from the full weight of being in a relationship and trying to heal from our exiles. We kind of believe along the way that the best thing that we can do with an exile is figure out a way to suppress it, make it go away, hide it, ignore it, overcome it, overpower it, overthink it, overreason it, oversomething it. But in fact, they have tremendous staying power. They just keep working us inside. And it's kind of like a classic example of an exile would be like, let's just say that you had a mom who always needed the dinner table at Thanksgiving or Christmas or whenever to be just so. Just so. And you live with that for the longest time, but you never tell anybody. So it becomes this, so this Thanksgiving, for example, you show up and you're the one setting the table. Of course you are. So what happens? Well, something goes wrong, whether you just missed something or you missed a plate or whatever it was, or it wasn't the way the host thought it should be. And all it takes is one little simple thing of this plate really should go over here. And it's like a rocket shot into your exile. And the exile says, Mark, because you screwed up that table setting, you are no damn good. You're a piece of crap. How could you possibly do that? Why didn't you know what the place setting was? Why didn't you know where the fork went, where the other fork went? It always kills me when there's more than one fork. Where the knife went. Like, why didn't you know that? You should have known that. Now, all that's going on inside of you. That is a conversation you're having with an exile. So we have 2 very different types of things that protect us from our exiles. Managers and firefighters. We're going to talk about managers mostly tonight. Managers and firefighters have the exact same goal, which is to help us deal with pain, principally to help us avoid pain. They take completely opposite approaches, which we'll see a little bit later. Managers would be what you would call, I guess, the proactive team. Managers emotionally, they work really, really hard at helping us to prevent pain. So like, maybe along the way you've found a way to maybe you didn't hear Aunt Susie quite say it the same way she did about the place setting last year or the year before. Maybe you just that overshot you. But this particular year, it got you. It just got you. And you don't know why. And so that day in front of her, you literally lose their mind. It's like one of those things that happens at Thanksgiving or Christmas where the people are like, oh, that was nice. That was different. And everybody gets very uncomfortable. Lots of people, if they could, if it wasn't a family gathering, would try to find someone to excuse themselves, but that's what happens. That's a type of manager. So firefighters are generally reactive in nature. The way they protect you is they try to put out pain when it shows up. What does that take you to? Classic alcohol abuse, classic drug use, classic sex abuse, all of that. Both managers and firefighters are really afraid of the pain that exiles bring. And here's the thing. Both managers and firefighters inevitably make the pain worse. So here's a quote. Do you want to know a cool thing about courage, she says? Courage doesn't require actual danger. It only requires fear. Fear and the sheer perception of danger. Without fear, we can't really be courageous. Even if what we're facing isn't dangerous and what we're doing isn't helpful, this is exactly what our protectors do. Is try to run as fast as we can away from the pain. It's like we were having this conversation last week about exiles. Remember that story about the buffalo and the cow? So the buffalo will turn and face the storm and run right into it. The cow will try to run as fast as they can away from that storm and eventually get caught in probably the worst part of the storm because the storm's going to keep building. That's what's going to happen. And I mean, I think that's a great story, but that's exactly, I think, how we're wired. So tonight, we're going to meet the managers. We're going to meet the protective team. A bunch of people will show up under this protective team and play on that team. The first player on this team is called, and we're going to fit one of these probably. The first player on this team is called the perfectionist. You can't just do it right some of the time. You got to do it right all of the time. It's kind of like the perfectionist gets this from some storyline or some script in their life. And so you're like, they are the person that at their house works on cleaning the floor at their house for an hour and a half, and it's a 10 by 12 floor or whatever. And you're like, what's the story with the carpeting thing and the vacuuming? They're like, well, they would be just as bad or just as good in the yard. You know, it's kind of like they would like remow a yard 3 times to like get the line straight. But they'd be like, well, the line's got to be straight. It's got to go a certain way. All those things got to line up to be able to vacuum. They're not going to be like a willy-nilly vacuumer. It's like, you know, some people like have no line. I mean, frankly, I'm not really a perfectionist, I don't think, but I definitely got that going on. Like, it's like, man, why can't you line up the way the carpet is? Now, like, Carol's not here, but take Carol. She could care less, unimportant altogether. That's why we have someone clean our house, because at least I know the lines are going to be there, man. But it's like, you know, it's like that. It's like the perfectionist, the mantra is do it right. Not only do it right, but do it right every single time. And probably the right way is the same way every time. So if you cook your meatloaf differently than I do, it won't be as good. If you are a griller and you grill your steak differently than I do, probably won't be as good. I'll probably get in the car after you serve me a steak and go, well, that was good, but I mean, it wasn't as good as mine. Like, you know, you can't just enjoy the steak. If you like ribs, people are so opinionated about ribs, man. It's like, why can't you just enjoy the freaking ribs? It's like, because it's not the right way to do it. Like, people have all kinds of wild concoctions of stuff they put on their ribs. It's like, it's mind-blowing. If you ask 25 people, how do you do ribs? You would get 20 very different answers. And they're gonna walk away from that conversation going, well, whatever works for you. It's like, but they're lying. What they want to say is, you shouldn't be doing ribs that way. There's a right way to do ribs, and this is really the right way. And if you're not going to do them the right way, why are you doing them? You're like, that's a perfectionist. Like, you got to do it the right way. You got to do it the right way every time. Protective team has another person on that team called the doer. The doer keeps all the people in the process, whether it's family members, friends, whatever, all the people engaged, moving so fast and working so hard that you put your feelings about all that on a shelf. Like, you don't deal with your feelings, you just deal with the work in front of you. You just deal with the work that is right in front of you. That's what you do. There's no real time to talk about it. There's no real time to reminisce. There's no real fun. This is work, man. And then to be a doer, you got to work as hard as the doer does. Well, a lot of people can't pull that off. Doers overdo every freaking thing there is. They overdo eating. They overdo events. They're the ones that plan. They're the ones that buy enough Cokes and stuff or drinks or whatever for 75 people when there's going to be 7 people there. You know someone like that? Over-prepare, overthink, overbuy, over everything. Like they just cannot imagine running out. Like my mom was 6 of us. My mom was not this woman. Like my mom would be like, well, I mean, you say, well, if you told my mom you ran out of brown sugar for the baked potato, for the sweet potato, my mom would be like, guess so. I mean, we'll get some. She wouldn't say we'll go get some tomorrow. I never saw her get in the car and go get some Johnny on the spot. But if my mom was a doer, she would have done that. My grandmother was a first-class doer. My grandmother would stay with something for hours and hours until she got it. And it never seemed to really faze her. I don't know anything about any of this. I didn't know why, but it just never seemed to faze her. Doers overdo everything. Travel, they're the people a doer would have already planned next year's vacation and where they're going and what condo they're staying in and having airplane tickets this year. That's what they would be doing. They're not the last second people at all. Overeat, overwork, overthink, overfunction, over everything. Doers. Thinkers are also on this protective team. The thinker's one job, is to keep us from feeling. If I can get you to analyze why something happened, what went wrong, you don't really got to feel it. If I can get you to there can be a death in your family, and I can figure out a way for my own comfort to get you to have to think about the details. They're kind of like doers in that way, to kind of think about what the details are to make that funeral happen. Somehow you can make your feelings go away. Well, that comes from somewhere else. That's important because maybe the last time you felt any really difficult feelings, it almost broke you in half, or that's the way it felt. That's why thinking is better than feeling as far as the thinker is concerned. A couple of more on this team. The controller, as you would define that, loves to manage people and loves to manage circumstances so that you can ensure that the really scary thing that happened won't happen again. The controller says something like this. Did you know that God has this wonderful, incredible plan for your life? And did you know that I know exactly what it is? And I'll tell you all about it. That's the controller. On this team, we also have the passive. The passive says, if you don't try, you can't fail. And therefore, if you can't fail, you can't get hurt. That comes from somewhere, that comes from somewhere else. Beginning to get the point of how A follows B, A carries you into B. The event in the very beginning, what caused that person to feel that way about failure, now has moved to the point of, hey, you have an exile with that, and the exile keeps saying, I don't want to feel this anymore, and so you find a way to overcome, put on the shelf or whatever, not overcome, but put on the shelf that exile feeling. If you don't try, you can't fail. And if you can't fail, you can't get hurt. You manage people effectively by shutting stuff down, taking away experience, both good and bad. That's how you do it. On this team is also someone called the self-sabotager. This is the person that they get a brand new job. They get this challenging experience, and they just cannot find a way to let the job just come to them. They're in it fast and furious. They just can't handle waiting around for something to happen. They think they should be promoted like an hour ago, even though they've been there 2 hours. But that self-sabotager, in a lot of ways, does exactly the opposite of what their ambition is. Since I believe I'm never really going to get there, since I believe I'm never really going to get rewarded, since I believe I'm never going to get recognized for what I'm really worth, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show up late to work 6 or 7 times. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to go to school, be late, skip class, get put out of school. I'm going to have this happen, and then this is going to happen. I'm going to overspend, and then I'm going to go have zero money in my bank account. Self-sabotagers go inside. The exile says, here's the deal. Since that's just the way you are, and since that's what you're always destined to be, which of course is not true, definitely doesn't have to be true. Listen, Buster, you're only going to go so far in life. You're only going to be so successful in life. You're not going to be a person that ever experiences or is challenged by any big things. Basically, you got to know your place and you got to know what's safe. That's a sabotager. Here's what I think are probably the hardest two. The next person on this team is called the critic. The critic zeroes in all the time on how fat you are, or how could you have said that dumb thing to that group of people last night, how stupid you are that you forgot that appointment, or how undesirable you are that no one will ever go out with you, or how hopeless you are that you'll never amount to anything. That's that voice inside of you. That's the voice of the liar, ultimately. That's the voice of the enemy, repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating inside of you. No damn good, no damn good, no damn good, piece of crap, piece of crap, piece of crap. Sooner or later, you start believing the critic, and sooner or later, you start mouthing and kind of mimicking the emotions and the words of that critic. According to the critic, that is exactly the point. The critic wants me to believe that I'm too fat or too ugly or too stupid to get out of the world and try. That way, it can minimize the amount I hear those things from others. As long as I know my place, as long as I don't risk anything, as long as I pay attention to the critic, I don't have to really risk a whole lot. And that says to me, somehow, some kind of way, maybe that'll make me safer. Too fat, too ugly, too stupid to get out into the world and actually try. Not to mention that the critic believes if it yells at me enough, then I won't mess up or do it wrong. It wants to protect me from failing, from being rejected and being disappointed, and basically meeting the exile in my life or the exiles in my life that brought about the beginning of that message that I attached myself to at the first place. The other manager is called, on the protective team, is called the judge. The judge, on the other hand, zeroes in on how fat or stupid or lazy or less than or hopeless that other person or other group, political party, religion, gender, or race is. Because if it can keep us focused on those other people's flaws, what's wrong with them, we will not have to look at our own. Like, I think the judges in this world, in our country at least, are at an all-time high. Like, look around. Watch the news for a half an hour. You will never find a news story where some judge isn't in place some kind of a way. If we still stumble over our own flaws, at least it won't be as bad as those people in that group that we're judging. It's the one-up strategy for trying to hide our shame. Those are all the characters that are on the protective team. There are others, but those are the main players. Quite the all-star team, don't you think? Kind of think through which one of those protectors have you been kind of hiding behind? Which one has the most power in your life right now? Can you kind of go back and ask yourself, where did this kind of get generated? If that's one thing we accomplished, it would be a good thing to kind of go, okay, what exile is hiding behind that? And what exile am I trying to push away? And what happens if, just like the storm, I go, instead of being on the run from this exile, instead of trying to avoid this exile, instead of trying to shove it down, which is our normal way, shove it down, shove it down, shove it down. Shove down very difficult situations in our families. Shove down divorces. Shove down abuse. Shove down trauma. Keep it down. Keep it in place. Keep it where it's supposed to be. What would happen if we started actually moving toward those exiles with help, with therapy, and kind of worked on those exiles as if we had a fighting chance to deal with them? What do you think would happen? How much healthier do you think we would all be if we did something like that? How radical of an idea is that, in fact? Rather than run away from the storm, we turn around and we go, I'm going to run toward the storm. Because I know this. I know that Jesus will be right in that storm with me, and he will never let me go, never forsake me, never abandon me, never reject me, always love me, always have my best interests at heart. That would be the hand you're holding when you go back into the storm. Amen? Hard stuff, but I think really good stuff, and I think for a lot of us, really important stuff. It's I was thinking about this week. In AA, there is a phrase that kind of goes something like this. There are those among us, this is the part that haunts me, those unfortunate few, basically, that are never really going to grasp this program. Well, they don't really say what happens next. Well, what we're talking about right now, if we can deal with these exiles, I really kind of believe it could be the next. It could be kind of recovery for the rest of us, amen? Where are the roadblocks in your life? What is really operating behind the scenes right now? What is God trying to show you right now? How is God trying to move you back into that storm right now? How is God trying to keep you safe? Not avoiding, but safe. Sometimes safe means you face the exact storm that's terrifying you. I know that sounds wild, but I believe that is also the gospel of Jesus. In his sweet name, amen.